everyone, and welcome to the Nutrient Workflow AI Data Extraction Task webinar. My name's John Bartlett, and I'm really excited to share this transformative new feature with you today. I always like to start with, what problem are we trying to solve? If you and your team spend hours manually rekeying in data from invoices, receipts, really any type of documents into your workflows, today's session has the potential to change the way you work. Our new AI data extraction task can eliminate that manual effort entirely. And it just doesn't extract the data. It can also provide you with complementary data analysis and insights as well. The capabilities of this new feature allow you to reimagine the scope of use cases you can apply workflow to. And over the next 30 minutes, what I'll do is demonstrate some real-world examples, walk through the task configuration process, and hopefully share just how easy it is to go from that manual data entry to a fully automated workflow document processing solution. So let's get started. Here we have a workflow that we'll use for our initial demonstration. Let's take a quick look at the design of this workflow before we actually run it and see the AI data extraction task in action. So the workflow starts out with a form type task, and this is simply where the user is going to upload the document that contains the data that needs to be extracted. They'll submit this document for processing by our AI data extraction task, and based on the configuration, it's going to pull key data elements from that document. It will then insert those data elements into a workflow form type task. And this is where the user will have the opportunity to verify and review the extracted data elements. They can also make additions and modifications to that data. Once they're done with that review, they can submit that data, and then it will be available for use downstream in the workflow for anything like conditional routing rules to pre-fills, data notifications, reports. In our case, we're actually going to take that extracted data and, using our document generation task, create a new document that will be used downstream in the workflow. Let's take a quick look at that document. Here's our document template. So we'll pull some information from the original document, like date, seller information, buyer information, company name, insert it into this template, package it up as a PDF, and then make it available for use by other tasks in the workflow. So for instance, you could have that newly created document signed. You could have it sent via notification to the relevant parties in this workflow. But for our demonstration, once the document's created, we'll end the workflow and review it from there. So now that you have some background on the workflow, let's go ahead and run it and look at the results. So I'm going to start this request. Here's that first task in the workflow where the user is expected to upload a document, which I'll do now. Of course, I'm manually uploading this document. This could be done in an automated way via our API, Power Automate, Zapier, our inbound email monitor. But for our demonstration purposes, I'm just uploading it manually. Let's take a quick look at the document before we submit it for extraction. So you can see this is a PDF, and this is just a contract type document. And we're going to pull some key data elements from this PDF, like date, broker name, buyer name, seller. One interesting thing of note in this document is there's some handwritten data as well. And our AI data extraction task is intelligent enough to pick up this type of information from the document. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this document now. Our AI data extraction task is going to take over and pull some of those key data elements and then insert those into a workflow form. There we go. And you can see that we have our initial document that we uploaded here and the data elements that were extracted. And as a user, I can actually view that original document that was uploaded. So I just open that up here and compare the extracted data elements to the original document. And these all look like they're in line here. But let's say, for instance, I get down to a section and let's say this amount of stocks was smudged and there was no value available from the extraction. As a reviewer, I could actually come down here, let me move this window, and modify that value to be correct and use downstream in the workflow. So I'll make that quick modification and we'll see what that results in shortly. In terms of where we're at in the workflow, we've uploaded the document, the data was extracted. We're now in the verification and review stage. I'm going to submit it and we're going to create a new document based off of that extracted data. So I've made the review. Let me update my value again here. I submit this. It's now going to take this data that was extracted and modified. And you can see it was inserted into this new document. So I'll just open that up real quick. Actually, I'll do it using the preview. And you can see here's our new document that contains the extracted data. And also you can see the modification we made was included as well. And again, now this document can be used for anything, right? We can send it to our signature task where the broker could be required to sign it and then emailed out to other people in the workflow. So now we're going to shift gears and I'm going to show you how to actually configure an AI data extraction task as part of your workflow. I have the stub of a workflow already configured, and it's got some similar components to the workflow we reviewed before in that it starts out with a form type task. This is where the document would be uploaded. And it has an outbound form task as well. This is where we'll send the extracted data to for review. So all I need to do is come over to my task palette. I'm going to grab the AI data extraction task and insert it in my workflow. I'll rename it real quickly here. We'll call it data extraction. And then I'll use my transition lines to put it in line with the rest of the workflow. And at this point, I'm ready to configure it. And I do that as I would any task in the workflow. I just need to roll over the task, bring up my sub menu, and select Configure Task. And this brings me up all the configuration options and settings for this particular task. The first thing I need to do is to define my AI connection. And you can see in my instance of the workflow, I have a few to choose from here. I have OpenAI, I have a couple of Anthropic options. The AI connections are defined under AI sources in your instance. So you'll have to set these up on your own, depending on your provider and what's available to you. You can see that I have multiple connections here with Anthropic and Claude. Some models perform activities better than others. So that's something you're going to want to consider as you're going through your configuration and setting up your AI sources. But I'll just jump back real quick to the workflow and we'll jump back to the configuration. For my example, I'm just going to use Claude Sonnet for the provider and connection that I already have set up here. Then probably the most important part of this configuration is the prompt. This is where I'm prompting AI to go out and extract certain data elements from the document. And instead of writing this from scratch, I have this queued up here. And I'll paste this prompt that I've already created into the prompt window. And basically what I'm saying here is extract the following data elements from this document and return the response in this exact JSON format. So this puts this in a format that I can then use to pre-fill into other tasks within the workflow. You might be asking, well, you say extract the following specific data elements from this document. What document are you referring to? Well, we can add pre-fills to this prompt just like we can other areas in the workflow. So I'm going to select this Add Pre-fills to Prompt option. and it's going to ask me for the source of that prompt or that document. And I'll select data from the initial form task, which is the attached document task. And I just have one field on that form called attached document. And so I'll add that to the prompt. And now the prompt understands where to point to the document that's going to be used in this extraction activity. The next step for me is to set up an example or template document that this prefill can reference. Because what I want to be able to do is run a test of this prompt and make sure it's returning all the data I want without having to run the entire workflow. So I can do that all within this the configuration of this task. So I'm going to go out to my folder here, and I'm going to pick the example document that we looked at, and I'm going to run a test. And so it's going to take that document that we looked at, insert it into this prefill, and then execute this prompt. So I'll run that test. And you can see we are getting valid data back within the JSON structure that we need. So I picked up the date from that document, the customer name and the email, and just to verify, I'll jump over to that document and you can see that it is pulling the correct information. Now, this configuration panel does have some other options. We have some advanced settings here, like temperature and max tokens, and some other behaviors on how this will look from a end user perspective and user experience perspective. Most of those are based on precision and the number of tokens that are used to do this extraction. We won't get into these details right now, but they will be documented on our website. So I'll just close that up for now. Now that I have the results from the test, I need to map these, right? So it's saying, yes, I can get this information back, but I want to store this information as part of this request. And I do that in the response values tab. So if I jump over to the response values, I have to create a field to capture all of those responses. Since this is custom and different for every iteration of this task, I need to define those from scratch. So all I need to do here is add a key, which is what was defined in the prompt that I created. And I'll just cut and paste to save a little time here. So I'm going to grab the date from the JSON structure. I'll give it a friendly name and then select the drop down and save here. And I'm just going to do that for the other fields real quick here. Here's customer name. Ah, save this, and we just have one more, the email. Okay, so I have my response values configured, and now this was what will be included in the raw data when this task is actually executing in a live instance. So let's go ahead and actually test this. We'll actually, I'll disconnect this here for now, and I'll show you how you can figure that part shortly. I'll run this request, kick it off. Here's our initial document. I'm going to go ahead and, well, let's do this. Let's actually, instead of uploading our template document, let's upload this other document that has a different format and layout, but it has the same key data elements in it that we want to extract. So when I upload my document, I am going to select Basic 2. I'll submit this. The AI data extraction is processing this document now, and it completes. So if we look at our flow view, our task executed as expected, and if I look at the task history, all of this data extraction is completely auditable. in terms of the results. So we can see that from the document, it pulled this date, this customer name, this email address, and here's the raw data that was extracted based on the prompt. So we already have a working example of this, pretty straightforward to configure. Let's go ahead and complete the loop on that example. And I'll add in this other transition line here. And the goal now is to take that data that was extracted and pre-fill it into this form. We already have the data elements being captured. So to do this, I just need to jump to this task. I select configure task here. And again, this is standard nutrient workflow mapping. So it should be familiar to you, those of you who have used it before. So I'll go to my pre-fill settings, and here's the fields on my form, and I just want to map these to the results of the data extraction task. So I'm going to say I want to pre-fill this with data from the data extraction task, date field. For the customer name, same thing. I want to pre-fill it with data from the data extraction task, customer name, and finally the email. So data from the data extraction task, the results of the email extraction. So I got to go ahead and save this, close this. Let's run this request. I'll just upload that same document we did last time. I submit this. Now it's going to run the AI data extraction task and take those extracted data elements and insert them into this form for validation and review. And then again, once this data is part of the request, it can be used for any downstream routing activities. And I've already set up some rules based on the customer name. So I'll submit this. The process ends here, and you can see that it went down the finance path since finance was in the customer name of this document. Now that we've reviewed how to configure the AI data extraction task, I want to look at one final example that differs from the previous demonstrations in that not only are we going to ask the AI to extract the data elements, we're also going to ask it to analyze the extracted data. So let me talk a little bit about the scenario here. We're going to be uploading a shipping document, and we're going to be pulling key data elements from this document, including whether or not there are hazardous materials included as part of the shipment. And if there are, we want AI to do some analysis on that, given the shipping start location, end location, and to determine if there's any considerations we should have for approving or rejecting this particular shipment. So let me run the workflow here, or actually we'll review it real quick first. So we'll upload that document, it will extract the data, and here's the prompt supporting that data extraction. Again, I'm just going to show it in this window so it's a little bit easier to see. But you can see that we're doing our typical data extraction here in the results with the JSON structure. But we've also asked it to perform a risk assessment and analysis and provide any specific insights related to that. It will give us an overall risk level of low, medium, or high, and also share any risk factors that we should be aware of when we're approving this request. And if I jump back to the workflow, you can see that after it does the extraction, it's got an auto-completing task where it inserts the data here. And if no hazardous materials are included, it just actually ends the workflow. So this, in that case, it's fully automated. There's no one actually reviewing this. It just moves on as completed. If there are hazardous materials within the document and those need to be reviewed and approved, it will kick it down this path based on the conditional rules and send it to a user to review. And as part of that review, they'll be able to review the insights that the AI generated. So let's go ahead and run this request, and we actually have a dashboard for this. So I'm going to jump over to that, and I'll kick this workflow off. So I'm going to upload my document. Let me just grab it here. And I have a whole bunch of documents. Some of them include hazardous materials, some of them don't. We'll pick this one here. I'll submit it. And it's doing the processing now. And it looks like this one did include hazardous materials, because if we look at the flow view, we can see that it didn't go down this path. It came down this one, indicating that hazardous materials are included. So it's presented to a user in the process to review. They can view the form here, see the extracted data from the document. It says, yes, hazardous cargoes included, and gives us a risk ranking of high, and then some risk factors included as to why it got that high rating. So as an approver, I can look at this and say, oh, yeah, there's lithium components included in this. I can't ship to that destination based on that. So I'll close this, indicate that I want to reject this. I could put some notes here as to why. And I submit this, and the process moves on in the workflow. And if I jump back to my dashboard, you can see that we have a new request that we generated here with the extracted data and some of the key data elements from that uploaded document, and a status of rejected. Once again, if I jump into this particular request as well, it's fully auditable. So we see exactly what's extracted from the uploaded document, its risk analysis, the risk factors, the key data elements, and we can also see that the shipment was rejected. That concludes the demonstration portion of our webinar. If you'd like more information on the AI data extraction task, we have additional resources on our website at nutrient.io, and you can always reach out to our sales team as well. And there's some contact information at the bottom of this slide. We certainly appreciate you allowing us. Thank you.